Ladies and gentlemen, please take your seats. The show is about to begin.
Hi everybody, I'm Terri. Jeremy and I are co-CEOs at Harvest Earnings. We talk about the business practices we love, but even better, the ones we love to hate. Come be a fly on the wall.
Hello, everybody.
Hello.
Today, we are going to address I can't say the literal elephant in the boardroom because there is no elephant in the boardroom, but we're going to literally address the boardroom. We're going to talk about corporate boards and some things that keep them from being effective. Clearly, some of them are, but in our experience, a whole lot aren't. So, first topic we're going to address is the composition of the board. Jeremy, you just discovered that the average age of a director is 63?
In the U.S.
In the U.S., yes. Apparently younger other places. So average age is 63. And that certainly bears out what we have seen. And of course, the look of the board is also heavily white male in the 60s or 70s. Oftentimes retired, illustrious career, but retired and now, looking to keep their toes in the water, which is fine, but it should not be the vast majority of the board, particularly if a company's market is not that demographic.
Right.
And you truly do need diversity of opinion. And to get that, you should have perhaps some dramatically younger people who may be in a different position to talk about technology. I'm not saying that all old people, old equals Luddite. Certainly doesn't, but it is a different mentality. So you need ethnic diversity, you need gender diversity, you need age diversity, and I'm sure other stuff.
Yeah, and
experience.
When it comes and when decisions are incredibly important, such as the life and death or decisions or imprisonment in decisions that are made by juries, the jury system, there's been a lot of research done about how diverse juries make better decisions. And those are when the decisions are really important. So there's a lot of research on that. Diversity improves decision-making. And McKinsey has done a lot of research showing that diversity of boards correlates to higher performance.
Yeah, better earnings.
Better
earnings.
Yeah.
Which isn't everybody after. And in addition to this, and we were just a couple of days ago met with a couple of different board members who have been on lots of boards themselves, and one of them, who we won't name names, is adamant that term limits for board directors are important because it gets stale.
Yeah, and people, it's I just like using the word sinecure. So a lot of people find these to be sinecures. It's a nice paycheck. It's like going to the club. You're meeting with other cool people. Your advice is considered sage sometimes, but you're often shown a lot of respect. And again, this isn't everybody. There are people that we advocate to get on boards because we think very highly of them and we think they would be terrific. And there's some great boards, but there is a vast number of boards that are just mediocre and ineffective.
Yeah. And lots of times we hear, well, if you don't have public company experience at the C level, you're probably not attractive to boards. But there are plenty of amazing people who have spent their careers in private companies doing wonderful things that should be on boards that are sort of ruled out because they don't have public company experience.
Right. In fact, one of these board members we were recently talking to was saying how, because he sits on private and public boards, that the private companies are more ambitious, more aggressive in a good way, more focused. Now, I don't know if that exactly comports with our experience, but he was quite passionate about it. And the idea, they're certainly not less so than public companies. And so there's a whole talent pool out there that would be good for boards.
Yeah. I think there's too many public corporate boards that the directors don't really have a skin in the game in any way that motivates them. I mean, obviously there's liability that should motivate them, but
yeah. And this gets to, well, actually, I want to say one other thing about diversity and then move off. I was recently took myself off of a board because I thought it was extremely ineffective and a waste of everybody's time. But one of the interesting things was that there was an advisory board made up of very junior people, and they were killing it. That board was, they didn't have the gravitas and the experience and everything that, the real board had. But they were doing a lot of things that made a difference. And when I left, this was not exactly kindly taken to, but, my thought was, why don't we blow up our board and just start with their board and start building and adding to it sort of from scratch. So that's on diversity. But should we talk about another element?
yes, let's do.
Okay.
You pick.
So while a diversity of background might be a positive, there are a few attributes that actually should be relatively common, probably. We recently came across a study that James Drury Partners, which does a lot of board recruiting, put out. And they asked board members what the 10 most important characteristics of a good board member were. And the 10th one, now, when you're getting down to 10, the 10th characteristic, I don't care if it's the 10 most important. By the time you're at 10, you're basically saying it's not that important. The 10th most important flavor listed on, the ingredients of some cookie or something is you can't even taste it.
Oh, we get your point.
Okay. So the 10th was curiosity. Now, we can't think, we can think of absolutely one attribute that's more important than curiosity.
Mm-hmm. And it was number 4.
It was only number 4. And that was being ethical and honest. Okay.
Having integrity.
Having integrity. That should not even be an attribute. That should be the ticket has to be punched to even get into the game. But that aside, because what is the board role all about? It's trying to ask really good questions. You're not there to make decisions. Yes, you make some, but you're not there to run the company.
No.
You're there to be, in effect, a really good sounding board and kind of coach for the CEO, but also for the management team. And that requires enormous curiosity, particularly if you've been brought in because you have a functional expertise that's useful, but you don't actually know the company that well. You might not even know the industry that well. And the fact that this would be low down, sadly, is consistent with some of the ones that are higher up, which is basically don't make waves. Don't embarrass the CEO. Okay, well, that makes sense. But a lot of it is...
it doesn't make sense.
Okay, it doesn't make sense.
No, it doesn't make sense. Okay. No, we're not saying that directors should be jerks.
No.
But directors should be candid and direct.
And direct, yeah.
So if you can pull the CEO aside, maybe that's a good thing. But I would even argue that no, it's not, because you've got an issue that would be an embarrassment to the CEO. Maybe the rest of the 10 directors should actually hear it and it should be discussed together. Yeah. Again, not in a way that needs to be, you don't need to be a jerk about it, but you've got to express, as a director, you've got to express your concerns. Too many of them, just look at the other way. They don't want to confront. This is a problem in management teams.
This has to do with human behavior everywhere and anywhere.
It does.
But the boardroom happens to be one of the anywheres and everywheres.
Well, and the directors have a fiduciary responsibility.
Yeah.
And they can be, they can put themselves at risk, and certainly put shareholders at risk. Every time there's an implosion of a big company, you get, well, where was the board? What was the board doing when Enron was doing all of this? And oftentimes it turns out, oh, well, there were whistleblowers, but they were, people were turning deaf ears. Is that an expression? Is you turn a blind eye?
Yeah, blind eye, deaf ears, sure.
I mean, it should be. And they weren't playing their role as good stewards to protect the shareholders.
And to be not telling tales out of school whatsoever, because probably obvious to everyone. A lot of what management does in relation to boards is spends an enormous amount of time. I don't even know if boards realize how much time management is spending putting together the board decks and how carefully they're crafted. You use the word, the meetings are choreographed. These are not just, let's get in a room and shoot the breeze and we'll tell you everything we know. These are elaborately choreographed to feed the board a worldview that management wants to feed them. Now, that worldview may have, well, here's a question we're trying to address, or here's an investment we're grappling with, but it's all in terms of management wanting the board to support it.
Yeah, and we're not saying that the C-suite is lying to the board.
No.
At all. But obviously you can put things in a positive light, or you can lay it all out, just, raw data and let it lie. I mean, I was the senior lending officer of a bank back in the day, a lot of days ago. And I would have to present to the board about, what the credit portfolio looked like for that quarter. And I remember, of course, the data was all as of the end of the month, the previous month. So we had a skyrocketing loans at risk that particular month. But by the time the board meeting came, things were in a much better position. So guess what I talked about? Now, we did show them what it was like at month end. So I think this was just a smart thing to do. But that goes the other direction as well. If the percentage had been great at month end and worse in the middle of the month, I'm not sure that would have been shown to them. Maybe it would have been. But, we talked recently in a podcast about how a CEO doesn't get the whole truth and a cold cup of coffee. I mean, this goes another step for the board.
Right.
If the CEO's not getting it, the board's not getting it, and talk about not getting a cold cup of coffee. Oh, yeah, Lord.
Yeah. Yeah, because no matter where you are in the scheme of things, most of us don't want to show our boss that maybe we're a little incompetent at times, or maybe we're uncertain about things, or maybe they need to worry about something. Because then there might be something where we really want their support and we've planted these seeds of doubt, or we want the promotion or whatever it is. Well, CEO's management team are the same way with their boss, the board. I mean, they want the stock option package to be passed and the new, performance goals or whatever. So again, this is just human nature, but at the board level, it's happening. And there's ways to prevent it or to mitigate.
That's right. So, I think in Australia, I believe boards and reporting in general is only done twice a year as opposed to quarterly here. And that, that makes a difference. But so here, I think a lot of directors go into it thinking, well, what really the work is 4 to 6 meetings a year, and that's their job. But it isn't. It shouldn't be anyway.
Also, in the U.S., it is predominantly the case that the CEO is the chairman of the board, at least for publicly held companies. And so that adds yet another layer of complexity, because it's kind of like if I'm orchestrating my own performance review with my boss, and they have to sit there and I'll tell them what forms we're going to use and how we're going to rate me. Now, they can fill them out, but it's another dynamic that makes this truth-telling just harder. Now, we have seen, this is a cool practice. We haven't seen it very often, but we have seen it, where the CEO, instead of just being them and the CFO and then maybe department heads for specific topics talking, they actually bring in much more junior people to talk about some of the things they're working on as a way of educating the board members, as a way of getting them excited, as a way of getting them to see the talent that's in the organization. And yes, those are also choreographed, but they are getting to a much more granular level of detail. I'm not sure what an ungranular level of detail is, but they're getting much deeper. And so they're engaging the minds of these, smart people. Most people on boards have a lot of experience and are smart. They're engaging them at that level, which then can prompt and make it okay to ask questions at that level.
Boards should have access. It's this, and it's the same way with the org chart, right? The junior person talks to their boss before they talk to their boss's boss. And God forbid they actually talk to the CEO other than to, champion the party line. But the boards should have access to anybody in the company, should be able to reach out and ask anybody questions. And I think it should go the other way. Board members should be available if somebody in the company wants to talk to them about a serious issue.
Yeah. It's interesting with CEOs. Most CEOs, I would say, are reluctant to call somebody randomly 3 levels below them. It would be viewed as, well, you should have talked to their direct report and they can cascade down. Yeah. But we once did work for Edmund Safra before he tragically passed away in a horrible incident in his castle.
Okay, trigger warning.
Oh, sorry.
Let's move on.
Anyway. What was interesting about Edmund, who owned Republic Bank, was that he built it up from a small organization to a large organization. And he knew personally, and it was part of his style, people everywhere in that company. And even though he spent half of the time out of the United States, he would randomly, on his schedule, call people up. So some, district manager might get a call from him at 11 o'clock at night, their time, or 2 in the morning. Because he was interested, he'd seen some report about deposits or something. He wanted to chat with the person. So even though he was probably the least physically present CEO of anyone we've worked with, he was the most knowledgeable about what was going on deep in the organization.
Well, and clearly had that curiosity thing.
I got it.
After.
Absolutely have the curiosity thing.
And I think, it was number 10 on the survey or whatever, but it is probably number 1, again, after integrity, for us, for senior executives as well. I mean, really just in life. It's a really...
Be curious.
Yeah, be curious. All right.
Not judgmental. Well, sometimes you got to need to be judgmental.
Oh, wait a minute. Did you just make a Ted Lasso run?
I did. I didn't think you'd catch it. Yes, I...
Although, that is often attributed to Walt Whitman. Apparently, that's incorrect.
Oh.
But I don't know who, I'm not sure we know who actually said it, but it predates him. Because I was curious enough to look it up.
Probably somebody in, 4000 BC, but maybe not.
I don't know.
Okay.
I'm sure there's many other things wrong with boards. I should do it for now.
Okay. Bye-bye.
See you all soon.
See you soon.
Bye.